And welcome to the Young Turks. It's Michael Schur here in Los Angeles. Let me tell you, if I had a nickel for every single time I've hosted or anchored a broadcast where a president, a US president, was indicted on federal charges, I would have 5 cents. And I would share that 5 cents today with Max Burns, who is a contributor to Rebel HQ here. He's also, Max is the, not only he's the founder of Third Degree Strategies, which is a communications firm, a progressive communications firm, and joining us, I think, from New York. Am I right, Waz? Is Wazi Lambre, writer at The Ringer and host of the Woke Brothers podcast. Glad to have you guys with me today as we go through what is truly a historic day in US history. Never before has a US president, former or sitting, been federally indicted. Maybe some should have been. It's never happened. Today in Miami, all that changed as Donald Trump went into a courtroom there to hear the indictment. We knew it was coming from last week. We knew that today, Tuesday, he would be going into the court in Miami. Jack Smith, the prosecutor, who was assigned to this case by Merrick Garland back in November, the attorney general said that we are going to investigate the case of the documents at Mar-a-Lago, and it happened today. Let's take a look at this.
Moments ago, through his attorney Todd Blanche, former President Trump pleaded not guilty to these 37 federal charges. And Todd Blanche, in fact, said the former president is, quote, most certainly pleading not guilty.
Todd Blanche, his lawyer, and what's interesting about Todd Blanche is that that while he is a lawyer working with Trump, working on the New York case with him, Donald Trump didn't have a Florida lawyer. He couldn't find one in time. The two lawyers that were on this case originally, Trusty and Rowley, left the defense of Donald Trump just days ago, and they looked and interviewed yesterday for an attorney in Miami. It's important to note that lawyers all say that you do need local representation. It's very important. You can bring your legal team in, but it both helps the legal team and it helps the case as well, because you'll have lawyers locally who know the judge, who knows what the judge likes, doesn't like, the kind of case you can put forward. Donald Trump wasn't able to find that. And today he walked into court. There were no cameras in the court, but we did, through Shane Goldmacher's Twitter account, we see Donald Trump walking into court today. He's flanked, I think that's his son, Eric, if we can show this graphic, his son, Eric, walking beside him. And then Walt Nauta, who is, I don't know if it's up there. Yeah, Walt Nauta, who is his co-defendant in this case, a Trump confidant who he sort of brought down with him. You know, he was also part of this case, and the only order of restriction that came out of this case, Donald Trump can travel. They didn't take his passport. They didn't make him do a mug shot. They did electronic fingerprints for the former president. However, he is not allowed to speak to Walt Nauta. There is no contact allowed to discuss this case going forward. So guys, I'll throw it first to you, Waz. Tell me what this means in the pantheon of American history, and also for Donald Trump.
I mean, as unprecedented as it is for a president to be getting, a former president to be getting arrested and indicted, this is his second one since leaving office, right? That's sort of the unprecedented nature of this guy's life as a president and afterwards. And I thought it was interesting when you said, well, we've never had this before. Even before he became president, I don't think we ever had a president who ran a fake college, right? I don't think we ever had a president who had like 7 to 8 bankruptcies before coming into office. Never had a president admit that, you know, when you have contractors and people who work for you, the first thing you should try to do is stiff them on their money and have them take you to court. This is a guy who's been openly engaging in criminal and fraudulent activities for a while now, for decades even. And so as unprecedented as today has been, I think Donald Trump has telegraphed this kind of stuff, showed you his sort of, I guess, moral scruples, if you will, if he even has any, throughout his presidency, his campaign, and since losing.
Yeah, Thomas Jefferson ran what is a real college. I went to it, University of Virginia. I mean, maybe it's not real. They gave me a diploma. But before we get to you, Max, let's take a look at what some of the indictments said and what was really going on in court. It's important to remember what brought Donald Trump to court, and we could go to graphic 2 here. Trump faces 31 counts of willful retention of national defense information, a crime delineated in the Espionage Act that carries a maximum prison sentence of 10 years. Each count represents a different highly sensitive document that Trump allegedly kept at Mar-a-Lago, his Florida residence and private club. More to this, 21 of those documents, including some involving nuclear secrets, were found by FBI agents who searched the estate in August, yielding a total of 102 classified documents according to the indictment. The other 10 willful retention charges stem from a batch of 38 classified documents turned over to the FBI last June in response to a grand jury subpoena. So Max, this again, we're in uncharted waters, as Waz said, and we all know where does it go from here, and what does it mean for Donald Trump? And I'm going to ask you another question here. There's a lot of pushback on the Republican side.
Yeah, the main thing we've seen Republicans exemplify here is that there is no low too low for them not to defend Donald Trump. We've had people out like Marjorie Taylor Greene calling to defund the Department of Justice, to defund the FBI, to jail Jack Smith. And meanwhile, former President Trump can't seem to find a defense lawyer in Florida, which should send red flags blaring everywhere. I mean, what shocked me so much in this is how clear the evidence is, the overwhelming documentary primary evidence. And this is what Jack Smith has chosen to reveal as his baseline in these documents. So now we go forward in this. And the concerning thing I see is that once again, in small ways, we're bending the justice system for deference to a powerful man. He's been allowed to not follow the process that every other person who's arrested follows. And it creates worries that in the interest of looking fair, we're going to make this an unfair trial.
Yeah, and the fairness of the trial also in question because of the random selection of Aileen Cannon as the presiding judge there. We'll get into that in a little bit, but let's talk about what he's doing. And part of why he can't find a lawyer is because nobody wants to represent Donald Trump. He is a loose cannon. He's somebody who doesn't have a consistent way of doing things. As a matter of fact, even in this case, the lawyers' reports right now, and this is reported in the Miami Herald and the Washington Post, is they don't even know how to go after this case. They don't know if whether or not they should let this thing unravel and Donald Trump should go at him saying that this is a miscarriage of justice and these are the worst people in the world, or just go put this before a jury, try and convince one juror that, hey, the president was not guilty of this, and that's all you need is that one juror. So it is a legal mess, but not just because it's a legal mess, because on the lawyer side, it's a mess as well. And this is, it was just alluded to, but let's talk about what he said today. This is number 4. Donald Trump went on Truth Social, called this one of the saddest days in the history of our country. We are a nation in decline. He earlier called Jack Smith a thug, a radical, and a lunatic. This doesn't seem, was to me, like a good legal strategy.
No, it certainly does not. And also, there were times in public where he essentially admitted to hoarding these documents. Because if you remember, right afterwards, they found some documents on Joe Biden's person, and Donald Trump was like, "Look, see, even Joe Biden had some documents in his possession that he wasn't supposed to." I think the difference, and it's a difference in kind, honestly, between what happened with Trump and what happened with Biden, is that Biden, they came asking for stuff, looking for stuff. He's like, "Go ahead, go find it." Trump, he intentionally obfuscated what was going on. He obstructed justice. He lied. He cajoled. He just behaved in a different manner. And the craziest thing, it feels like he did this so that he could do like party tricks with his buddies like Kid Rock and show him American secrets. Like, this seems like the reason why he did it. I know some other people might think that there might be something deeper and more nefarious going on, that he was stealing them to send to foreign governments and maybe possibly American enemies abroad. I have a hard time believing he went that crazy and that far. But yeah, I do believe that he was stupid enough to think that it'd be a cool idea to maybe show his buddies who killed Kennedy.
Right, and Max, I mean, the politicization of this is blatant. The president, the former president, went to Little Havana after he was, after he left the courtroom, obviously not held. Went to Little Havana, spoke to Cubans at Cafe Versailles there, people who would be natural supporters of Republicans, although Barack Obama won the Cuban vote in Florida in 2012. And so I think that you go to where you're comfortable. Before he even got there, his partisans were there. There were threats of violence, as we all saw from Kari Lake, even indirectly from the president himself, from Trump himself. I keep calling him the president, the former president, and that didn't happen. At least it hasn't happened yet. But it's certainly something to look at. Let's Max, let's listen to what his supporter Alina Habba, who is a lawyer and a spokesperson for Trump, said before the proceedings today in front of like a gathering of Trump people neatly placed behind her.
The former president took a seat at the defendant's table. He was wearing his trademark red tie with a dark suit. We saw the lawyers take their seats on the former president.
In recent years, we have seen the rise of politically motivated prosecutors who don't care for impartiality, who don't care for due process or equal protection of laws. They have been quietly but aggressively cultivating a two-tiered system of justice where selective treatment is the norm. From the Russia hoax to the attorney generals to the corrupt DAs in Georgia and New York, and now this. The people in charge of this country do not love America. They hate Donald Trump. The targeting, prosecution of a leading political opponent is the type of thing you see in dictatorships like Cuba and Venezuela.
Max, couldn't it be argued that dictatorships are the places where they bring home the classified documents and they show them to their friends? Couldn't it be argued that these people who are saying it's unpatriotic and un-American are talking about someone who is doing absolutely the most unpatriotic thing you could do, that this is treason, bringing these things home and waving them around and keeping them from the people who are looking for them?
Yeah, I mean, these are the arguments you make when you have no legal defense. These are the arguments that Republicans are in effect left with. And it needs to be in their worldview that this is a political prosecution. Forget for a minute that Donald Trump isn't being prosecuted for his politics. He's being prosecuted because he stole US battle plans and nobody knows quite what he did with them. But for this to be true, and we've seen this not just from Trump's lawyers, but from MAGA fundamentalist Christians who have called for religious warfare on behalf of Trump, for Trump himself, who's called for war for the law. And one of the main reasons we didn't see a bigger crowd out there today is because several hundred of the people most likely to commit violence are already in prison because of what they did on January 6th.
Right, yeah, well, they've thinned the herd a little bit. Are these then the dying gasps of a group of people who really have nowhere to turn right now? I mean, look, there are partisans. He does have this, what we think is a solid 30% was of people who support him within the Republican Party. His numbers have gone up each time something like this has happened within the Republican Party. What has to happen here to start chipping away at that, or is it already chipped away at enough that these people don't matter?
Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Max. No, go ahead, Max.
No, I was saying, for now, Donald Trump is firmly in control of the GOP. I mean, 63% of voters support him. It's his show. At this point, the Republican Party is a brand attached to Donald Trump, not the other way around. So I don't think he's in any fear. And judging by what we've seen from the 2020 candidates, they are terrified to even attack Donald Trump for this. So how they plan to beat him is anyone's guess.
And was
yeah, And I think that the reason why Trump continues to have a hold on these people is because I think a lot of his appeal was the unorthodox nature of his candidacy, that he was not some cookie cutter country club GOP flack. Like he was not a Mitt Romney. He was not a Mike Pence, quite frankly. He was not a Jeb Bush, low energy. He felt like somebody that was from a different planet than the normal Republican candidates. And I don't know have you seen Ron DeSantis speak in public recently? Like that guy is about as robotic and calculated and kind of the same old crap. Honestly, when it comes to Republican cookie cutter politicians, Trump still, as battered and bruised as he's been in the public, I think he still cuts a pretty distinct figure amongst his cohort in the Republican Party.
Yeah, I mean, it's clear those numbers, if we're to believe polls, and sometimes we do, that those numbers are convincing of the fact that he is still the strongest horse in that race, maybe being chipped away at a little because there's so many people running. But the more people that run, the better it is likely for Donald Trump, as we've seen. So here's, before we get out of court for a second, here's what he's doing next. And this is what happens to the president next, to Donald, the former president. This is number 5. Now that Trump has entered his plea of not guilty, his case will, barring the unforeseen, and that's a big clause in that sentence because there's always something unforeseen with Trump, follow a familiar path. The government will begin to reveal its evidence through the discovery process. Pretrial motions will be filed and argued. All of that is likely to take months. And most likely, Donald Trump is going to try and push this as far out after the 2024 election as possible. But again, the legal troubles continue. We are still waiting on Georgia. We're still waiting on January 6th. There are still legal stories to come down the road for Donald Trump, which may in fact be why so many people are running for president against him, because they think that he won't be there when it's time to go to vote next November and in the primaries earlier in the year. We're going to take a break now. We're going to come back, discuss a little bit more about the ramifications of this, what Republicans are saying about it. Please remember, if you like what you see here, go to join TYT, become a member. That's tyt.com/join. I'll be back with Max and Wasp after this. Okay, so some comments coming in from the members. Great to have you again doing this. The first one from Ian, Epic, Waz, and Max. You better believe this is a power panel. Yeah, we didn't drop it, but I guess we could have, but I always roll my eyes when Cenk does that anyway, so we'll leave it alone. And then we have, let's see, what else? Louis_Cipher, curious why those documents were ever allowed in the White House. Didn't he have to check them out? Yeah, I mean, that's the question. And the National Archives has a lot to answer for. The fact that these archives and these documents were everywhere except the National Archives, and that's part of it. And then let's see what else we have here. Vicky, good evening, men. Boy, did you get a good news day. Enjoy. We sure did. If Cenk's ever going to travel on a day like this, happy to cover, because these stories tell themselves. And then we go to our new YouTube members and YouTube member comments here. Oh my God, I love the panel. We love hearing that. Wow, nice lineup, y'all. So of course that's good. Talking about Alina Habba, you can tell how hard she believes this and how hard she has to refer to her notes. Yeah, as Alina Habba was reading all that stuff, she just kept looking down and reading. So super chat comments. Diana Vaccarelli, $1.99. Thank you. Was, can we see the cutie kitty? I guess somebody wants to see.
The kitty is not with me. The kitty is still back in Los Angeles. So sorry, no kitties today, y'all.
Peter Hamby, $5. Thank you, Peter. Unprecedented is a great idiosyncratic event Trump is going through. Yeah, unprecedented. Ron, $5. Thank you. The only reason there weren't a lot or any real violent protesters is because many of the traitors were put on trial from the January 6th protest. Yeah, Max was mentioning that, and that's true, man. I mean, these people that we were counting on seeing, inflict violence upon us. They weren't there because they're in jail, because the Justice Department, everyone else on Jack Smith's side, they were doing their job to get these people in jail, and that's important. So again, thanks for commenting, thanks for writing in, thanks for watching. We're going to get back to the courthouse in Miami. Back on the Young Turks, Michael Schur here in Los Angeles. Max Burns and Wasni Lambre joining me today. Today is a big day, man. We're happy to be able to report that the wheels of justice are turning in South Florida. And the most telling part of this is what is doing to the former president, how he is just reeling, even though he's putting up the kind of front that any defendant would, and you have to expect that he would do that. This morning, he was on Howie Carr's radio show. He redirected every single question about his indictment back to the 2020 election and his 2024 campaign. And as I alluded to earlier, he also went after Jack Smith, the special counsel in this case. He said had no evidence in this case, which we know is not true. He said it's vanity run amok. He said that in North Carolina the other day. But this is what he said on Truth Social. This is the thug, overturned consistently and unanimously in big cases, that Biden and his corrupt Justice Department stuck on me. He's a radical right lunatic and Trump hater, as are all his friends and family who probably planted information in the boxes given to them. That's what he's saying. They planted information. They taint everything they touch, including our country, which is rapidly going to hell. Again, we talked a little bit about patriotism, right? And what defines patriotism, and how Donald Trump and Republicans have been appealing to patriotism and what it means to be American. Max, is there anything less American? Is there anything less patriotic? Is Donald Trump a traitor because of what he did?
Well, he's certainly someone who's put the United States in incredible national security risk. I mean, you have a room full of people who are going to testify under oath that a former president was waving around some of America's most sensitive battle plans and showing them off to them because he thought bombs were cool. I mean, the same guy who sat all day in a fire truck playing pretend is now distributing some of America's most guarded military secrets to anyone who gives him validation. I mean, that's not just unpatriotic. It's a level of self-involved nihilism that it goes beyond anything I think we've seen in modern politics.
And that self-involved nihilism, really well put. I like that turn of phrase. That is exactly what is preventing lawyers from wanting to get on his team. The guy cannot get an attorney. Can you imagine a president or former president of the United States that wouldn't have people lining up outside his door to represent him in a case like this? It would be the honor of many lawyers' lives, I would imagine, but that's not the case here. Part of the problem, they say, of recruiting lawyers, which Trump has not been able to do, has been Trump's reputation for being a notoriously difficult client who has a record of declining legal advice and seeking to have his lawyers act as attack dogs or political aides rather than attorneys bound by ethics rules. People close to the process have said. This is according to Hugo Lowell in The Guardian. The other concern for the top lawyers in Florida being contacted by Trump's advisors has been the perceived reputational damage that could come from defending the former president. The people said not just because of his politics, but also because of the strength of the indictment. So, Waz, I mean, can you imagine that? Lawyers not wanting to defend a former United States president because of the damage it could do to them?
I am actually having a hard time imagining that. I don't think lawyers have a lot of shame when it comes to defending anybody. Quite frankly, it's everybody's right to have a lawyer, right? It's everybody's right to defend themselves in the courts. I don't know that I'm buying that part of the whispers. I can absolutely buy the part where this doesn't seem like a slam dunk for the defense, right? It feels like the government has all their ducks in a row, which is kind of the case usually when we see a federal level indictment. We see all the time when the FBI brings a case against somebody, they always tell the people that they're coming after, we have like a 95% conviction rate. Like we read that all the time. I think these lawyers understand that they're probably going to lose in court. Although, guys, it's still very early in the process. You know, the indictment was only handed down today. Some lawyer in Florida is going to convince themselves that it is a good idea for their career to represent the former president of the United States. Even in a loss, I think somebody's gonna convince themselves to take this case and be damn happy that they did.
Yeah, there's no question he is going to get a lawyer. He'll be represented by, at least on his team, a Florida attorney and litigator. One of the problems is, though, that he is a difficult client. Today, E. Jean Carroll, you remember, who won the civil case against Trump, awarded damages for sexual harassment. She was allowed now to ask for more damages because of what Trump did after that case in bad-mouthing E. Jean Carroll and the whole process. So he is a loose cannon, and he costs himself, which is why you can understand that the legal community does not want to get behind him, especially in something like this, where 37-count indictment that seems rock solid, of course they all do at the beginning, seems rock solid, has been handed down. One of the sort of aces in the hole that the defense may have is Aileen Cannon. She is the judge who did not preside over today's arraignment, but the judge who is going to be presiding over this case because of the random assignment. She was one who wanted to put a stay on the original documents case back in November, I think it was. And then she was found out to have been acting irresponsibly there. The 11th Circuit Court of Appeals overturned what she did. They told her that she cannot put a stay on. The case can go forward. They cannot have a special master, all the things she wanted, but she's clearly a Trump sympathizer. She was appointed by Trump. That may be something that helps the former president. Does that ring true with you, Max?
Yeah, I mean, nothing would surprise me in this sort of fallen era we're in. In any sane democracy, Aileen Cannon would recuse herself immediately. I mean, the biases are clear, and even the presumption. And remember, so much of recusal is about avoiding even the presumption of impropriety. You don't have to have done anything wrong. It's just best practice to even remove the doubt. There's no sign Aileen Cannon is going to do that, and she certainly has seen through these cases in the past. I honestly have never seen something like her case on appeal receiving some of the harshest criticism I've ever seen a federal judge receive for her basic knowledge of the law. I mean, it is simply not safe to entrust a case like this to someone who doesn't know how to read law.
Yeah, and that's, again, one of the things that the Republicans are hanging their hat on is that there is some protection for their guy down there because of this judge, and recusal can't be forced. It has to be taken by the judge, and that's why it could be that you see Cannon presiding over this case. But she's going to be watched very closely, and I would imagine will try and do. She acted almost as a loose cannon herself last time, and I imagine with all the eyes on her in this case that it may be a little bit different. But again, those are my rose-colored glasses about this. But let's talk about the way this is being received by Republicans, because both of you guys have talked about it a little bit, astonished by how the Republican community writ large has looked at this indictment, has looked at Trump, has not come after, with the exception of a couple of presidential candidates who are going to run against him, has not come after Trump in any way. In fact, has defended him. Republicans, the biggest, most important Republican certainly in politics right now is the Speaker, Kevin McCarthy, who actually talked about false equivalency. Listen to McCarthy here.
Was that a good look for the former president to have boxes in a bathroom?
I don't know. Is it a good picture to have boxes in a garage that opens up all the time? A bathroom door locks.
I mean, that's what they're going to now, right? I mean, McCarthy is talking about the fact that these were in a bathroom. Where they weren't was the National Archives. Where they weren't was the White House. And he's talking about Joe Biden having had documents himself that he announced, that he said, come look everywhere in my house and get them. Similarly, former Vice President Mike Pence did the same thing. That's the way these things should be handled when they happen. They shouldn't happen, obviously, and I think there's going to be a review of that. But it's that is where he kept them. You can see the picture here. It's the Mar-a-Lago bathroom, a ballroom, a storage room on the ground floor of the place. And you had people saying that it's hard to get in there. I don't know if we have Byron Donalds sound. Do we have that video? Because here's Congressman Byron Donalds from Florida talking about that.
You guys are throwing up the pictures about they were in a bathroom or they were on a stage. As somebody who's been to Mar-a-Lago, you just can't walk through Mar-a-Lago of your own accord because Secret Service is all over the place. So if the documents are in a place, they're in a room, depending on the time of year, you can't even get into said room. There are 33 bathrooms at Mar-a-Lago. So don't act like it's just in some random bathroom that the guests can go into. That's not true.
But the guest can go where Donald Trump can wave around a secretive nuclear document, can't they, Max Burns?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's good in Donald's mind that you only have a 1 in 33 chance of jeopardizing national security and stealing the nukes. I mean, it involves looking past the point, which all these Republicans are doing, that it's not about how secure where he put them was, it's that he shouldn't have had them at all, and that he made active efforts to hide them. I mean, the fact that the bathroom has a lock, while the giant human-sized window next to it doesn't. And it's so much talking past this point and hoping you just won't notice.
Right, and it's also where they're not, right? I mean,
exactly. That's
they're in the bathroom, they're in the ballroom. Where are they not? Right? They're not where they're supposed to be.
They're not safely secure in the archive. That's the point. It's not about how safe it theoretically is at Donald Trump's place of living. That's besides the point. This stuff is supposed to be under lock and key, absolutely unable to be viewed or seen or interpreted by people who don't have the highest levels of security clearance in the government. That's the point there. I'm not really sure what that brother was trying to get at with that one.
Yeah, it is unclear, and not to mention they weren't only in one of the 33 bathrooms, they were in a storage room, a room that could be reached through multiple entrances, including a door leading from the pool patio that was often kept open, according to the indictment. More than 80 boxes were kept there, according to prosecutors. But again, it's all about what did Biden do? And the childish back and forth that the Speaker of the House had with some reporters yesterday, he went on to talk about those false equivalencies. Here is the esteemed Speaker.
I don't want people to take these documents away. The vice president, Pence, but as a senator, you'd have to steal the documents. You know what concerns me is you have a lot of these documents behind a Corvette in a garage with the door wide open. And you've got a son of Hunter Biden who knows who he has there in and out. I mean, there's a lot of concerns on both sides.
The son of Hunter Biden. I don't know. All they have to find any way they can to say Hunter Biden to make things, equal. Oh yeah, but Hunter Biden. I don't even know what he was talking about. You have the son of Hunter Biden there. But here's the difference, right? He's talking about Joe Biden's garage. He's talking about the people that could have come to President Biden's home. Joe Biden, when he found out about it and when his administration found out about it, contacted the FBI and the National Archives and said, we have these, come and get them. Don't know how they got here. There was no intent, right? There wasn't intent on the part of Mike Pence. Same thing. Wasn't intent on the part of Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. These documents ended up there. They were reported by those people and their staffs, said come and get them. They went and got them without incident. When they went to get the documents from Donald Trump, there was pushback, there was blocking, there was obfuscation constantly. And that's part of this indictment. Mike Levine of ABC News saying by contrast to what happened with the others, the indictment against Donald Trump not only says that nearly all of the 31 documents he's charged with willfully retaining at his Mar-a-Lago estate were marked as classified, but it also details alleged conversations and actions showing that he allegedly knew he took and held on to classified documents from the White House. That's the difference. Not just the fact that the others didn't resist, not just the fact that those documents were there, but he allegedly knew and he took and held on to classified documents from the White House. When Biden's personal attorneys first found classified documents in private offices associated with Biden, they said they notified the National Archives and Records Administration and they helped the government retrieve them. Trump, on the other hand, is saying that he tried to obstruct justice. The Justice Department is saying he tried to obstruct justice. This is the Washington Post. Those allegations include moving boxes out of a storage room, telling an attorney to search that room for classified material without saying that dozens of boxes were being kept elsewhere, suggesting an attorney hide or destroy documents that had been subpoenaed, and causing another person to make false statements about whether all the classified documents had been produced. Was, I mean, this is a crime. I mean, this is blatant. Yeah. This is, if proven, this is really ugly stuff.
Yeah, it feels like they got this guy dead to rights, honestly. We'll see whether or not, because let's face it, presidents just don't get locked up. That's just not something that we do to them. Even when they have been found to have committed crimes. You think of Richard Nixon, for instance. Not only did he not get locked up, he got pardoned later on, and everybody was like, "No, it's we're getting over it." We still like Dick Nixon. It's like this sort of fraternal order where they don't turn on their own. But usually we're talking about crimes that were done in office, right? This guy had the misfortune of committing major crimes while out of office. But I think what you see there with McCarthy is the general strategy of the GOP as it pertains to the stuff that Trump is getting indicted for. It's this idea that these aren't big deals, right? This guy had, he might have had some documents on his person, no big deal. Nobody got hurt, there was no intent. Yes, there are rules against this, but he's the president. You might understand why we're able to bend some rules for him. The situation in New York involving Stormy Daniels, I think their strategy is gonna be the same and appeal to normal people and say, should a guy really go to jail for paying a prostitute not to put his business out on the streets, right? Hush money, essentially. I think they're gonna appeal to people's sensibility that this isn't something that you lock a guy up and throw away the key for. And to be honest, guys, just to put this in a little bit of different perspective, I think about all of the people from the Trump regime and all the Iraqis that got killed, all the trillions of dollars we wasted, knowing that these guys lied to us intentionally on purpose to send us there. And them people, they never saw even a courtroom, even the threat of one. And I think that's what the GOP is gonna appeal to, just the idea that people have gotten away with way worse and not had to go to jail for it.
I like Watts. For a second, I got scared. You said, and to be honest, guys, I thought you were going to tell us that you paid off a prostitute. I'm glad you didn't. Max, pick up.
Who among us has it?
Who among us, right? Jerry, by the way, Jerry Springer, who we recently lost, paid a prostitute with a check. One of the most unbelievable stories in American political history. He was mayor of Cincinnati. Max, let's get back to this, though, the real stuff here. Pick up on what Was was saying. I'm sure you have a lot to say on this as well.
Yeah, I'm genuinely curious who Kevin McCarthy's arguing with, because there's not a single Democrat in America who says that Joe Biden had a right to have those documents. There's not Joe Biden, not anybody. They worked immediately to turn them over. And I think where this really hurts the Republican Party is now the American people are gonna try to understand this issue, and they're gonna look for clear messaging. On the Democratic side, that's easy. Donald Trump's a crook, he stole battle plans, the guy's dangerous. But on the right, you don't see any clear messaging. Nikki Haley, I think, put it best. She said what Jack Smith did to Donald Trump is wrong, but Donald Trump is also wrong for stealing documents. It disqualifies him from being president, and he shouldn't be near power, but she'll pardon him if she wins. What does that mean? She's had every position.
You bring up Nikki Haley, the former governor of South Carolina and United Nations, served in the United Nations under Trump. This is what other Republicans are starting to say. Let's listen to Nikki Haley speaking over the weekend.
If this indictment is true, if what it says is actually the case, President Trump was incredibly reckless with our national security. More than that, I'm a military spouse. My husband's about to deploy this weekend. This puts all of our military men and women in danger if you are going to talk about what our military is capable of or how we would go about invading or doing something with one of our enemies. And if that's the case, it's reckless, it's frustrating, and it causes problems.
I like that the Fox anchor there doesn't quite know what to do with that. I'm not going to name them because I don't know who they are. Also, Chris Christie last night was on, I think it was last night, talking about the former president. You knew he was going to come. He got into the race because you knew he would be a pugilist on issues like this. And he came in pretty strong. I mean, not Chris Christie strong, but let's listen.
He's saying, I'm more important than the country. These are my papers. You saw in the indictment, his employees were scared. They always call them his boxes. His boxes, he wants his boxes near him. He flew the boxes up to New Jersey for summer vacation. What is this, like they're a family member? I mean, seriously, I got my boxes with me. And let me ask you a question. What exactly was he doing with them? Did someone remind him he's not the president anymore? You don't need these things anymore. This is vanity run amok, Anderson. Run amok. Ego run amok. And we're in a situation where there are people in my own party who are blaming DOJ. How about blame him? He did it.
Yeah, and that's, I actually attributed the vanity run amok to Trump talking about Jack Smith, because in my notes it was a little sloppy, but that was Chris Christie saying it last night about Donald Trump. I don't know that the MAGA crowd really knows how to cope with something, vanity run amok. That's not really what they're looking for. But and I'll get to you guys in 1 second. Senator Tim Scott also running against Trump, the Republican senator from South Carolina, said he called the federal indictment of former President Donald Trump a serious case with serious allegations. And then he followed that up, of course, because you've got to be careful. What we see today across the administration of President Joe Biden is a double standard. That double standard is both un-American and unacceptable. You can't protect Democrats while targeting and hunting Republicans. When, Max, when are these people, these Republicans, going to say what's un-American is keeping American secrets and showing them and keeping them vulnerable to the rest of the world?
I mean, it is amazing that these Republicans are still absolutely terrified of crossing Donald Trump, and probably still will be when he's put in jail. But the reality, I look at Chris Christie and he says, did no one tell him that he wasn't the president anymore? No, your entire party, in fact, told him he still was the president and then defended an attack on the country. So all of this, like, I respect Chris Christie for calling out corruption and crime, but he's taking a little bit of a blind eye to exactly who enabled that. I mean, he needs a mirror instead of a microphone here.
Yeah, that's true. And he's got to admit it. His whole candidacy has to be about being refreshing and being open and being critical and, even self-deprecating about the stuff that he has said in the past. Otherwise, he can't succeed. Somebody has to go after this president. So, Wasp, before we move on from Donald Trump today, one last question about the tenor of things. Like, where do you think this goes from here in terms of how Republicans receive this? Are there going to be more Haleys and Scotts? And let's not give them crazy credit here. They still tiptoed around criticizing this guy. They didn't say, they said, if then. I mean, that was how careful Haley was. And Scott, of course, couching it. Haley couched it as well. Is this going to start getting a little more contagious, do you think?
I think the closer we get to stuff like primaries and things of that nature, these guys and gals will try to differentiate themselves as much as possible. But of course, the problems that are gonna arise for these folks. You think about a guy like Chris Christie, where he had, his own corruption issues while being the governor of New Jersey. I don't know if that's gonna be a good way for him to go, guys.
Yeah, I don't. I feel like I'm just so exhausted by these Republicans who, many of them are really smart people, and I mean that, who just don't look at what can be gained by going against this guy. He's not going to be around forever, right? I mean, that he's not going to be the flavor of this party forever, and they won't see that, and they won't stand up. I mean, I keep going back to it. They talk about patriotism. The Republicans want to own the American flag. We are the patriotic ones. We know what patriotism and freedom in this country is all about. 1776, you hear them chanting. The most un-American thing we've heard of from a US president is what Donald Trump had to listen to in a list of 37 indictments today in a courtroom in Miami. That to me is not patriotic. That's un-American. That makes him a traitor if you're looking at it this way. I don't know why the people who care about patriotism so much, allegedly, don't see that. Young Turks will be back in a minute. Obviously, go to tyt.com/join and join. We're going to read some of your comments. Thanks for being with Was and Max and myself today. Third party time. McCarthy is such a dumbass. Bathroom doors locked from the inside. Yeah, that's a good point. Dragon with the girl tattoo. Cannon will allow every frivolous delay tactic the Trump team tries. She's basically part of his defense team. Yeah, I mean, that's something to be scared of, right? I mean, that's something that we need to take a look at. Going to Twitch subs. Again, I'm speaking and doing this as if I know what the hell I'm doing, so they'll have to bear with me. Twitch subs. I'll go with it. Let's pick one out of the hat. Someone from Flint. I've been to Flint, so I'm going with it. I'll never get over knowing that Trump was worried about trying to score cool points from Kid Rock. LOL. Yeah, that's pretty unbelievable. Let's thank Brian Chandler Tita, Mika, and KKC, all three of you new members, thanks for joining TYT. We really appreciate that. Alyssa B saying, someone please keep plates and ketchup away from Trump this evening. Well, he's in Bedminster, his own club now. That's where he was going back, and he's going to make some remarks there. He went for Cuban food. Probably no ketchup at Cuban food, so I think we're safe for the moment. And then let's see, isn't there a photo of Mark Meadows reading a copy of a top secret document on a plane? Giuliani was on the plane as well. Well, Mark Meadows is turning apparently state's evidence, and we're going to be hearing about what he knew and saw. Maybe it was just related to January 6th, I'm not sure, but I'm sure his name's on a witness list. And Artem Kazantsev, only because I'm a hockey fan, Stanley Cup Finals tonight. Will I be able to pronounce that perfectly? Support TYT. Thanks for participating in the comments. Let's try one more, right? We have time for many more, several more. Angel 86 Rods. If there was no issue with these documents, then why lock them up? Even Biden should be able to have them in the garage, right? I don't know really if Biden should have them in the garage. Even Biden didn't think he should be able to have them in the garage, so he called to have them removed from the garage. So I don't think these documents should be anywhere other than where they belong, which is in the White House or the National Archives, certainly the classified documents. And anyway, thanks for participating there. Tell your friends. www.tyt.com/join. Become a member of this fine institution here that I've been a part of for all but one day of its existence. So happy to be in this seat today. Yeah, I came on day two. It was Ben and Cenk on day one. Look at you making the face in the control room. I started on day two in Cenk's living room. Back in the Young Turks, Michael Schur here with Wasni Lambre and Max Burns. We're talking everything Donald Trump. He had a big day. It's going to be a lot of days like this, I have a feeling, for Donald Trump. And we will be here on TYT covering it. That's why we want you to become members. Please go to www.tyt.com/join and join us, so you support what we're doing here and bringing this to you, and you get lots of cool stuff just for joining, I believe. Okay, so now let's talk about other sort of wackiness coming out of Republicans who are not defending Donald Trump for stealing state secrets and flaunting them in front of rock stars and the like. Real stuff is happening in Washington. There are bills up there that are going through the Rules Committee, and the Rules Committee is where everything happens in Washington. And let's listen to Jim McGovern, who's the ranking Democrat on the Rules Committee in Washington.
They're fine with adding another $500 million to the deficit, but then they go after food aid for poor people. I mean, it's like, what the hell is going on here? Where are their priorities?
So McGovern from Massachusetts is talking about a bill that is to loosen pistol braces, which are for guns, and it's introduced by Andrew Clyde, and we'll get to that. But the measure, as it is introduced by Representative Andrew Clyde, would put a halt to a Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives rule announced in January that places further regulations on stabilizing braces for pistols. These arm braces are mounted to the rear of a pistol to make it easier to shoot with one hand. Continuing, the ATF rule categorizes pistols with braces as short-barreled rifles, which require a federal license to own. The White House has argued this reclassification is necessary because the gun industry uses braces to work around regulations on short-barreled rifles, which shoot more accurately. Let's talk about Andrew Clyde for a second. You may know him because he is famous for having said that the January 6th crowd were tourists walking through the Capitol. That's the guy. He is a former gun shop. He's a gun shop owner. He actually still owns a gun store in Georgia. All his campaign paraphernalia was emblazoned with semi-automatic and automatic rifles. He wears a lapel pin and gives them out to other members of the Republican caucus that has an AR-15. This is a gun guy. The Biden administration has already said they will veto the bill, noting the device has been used in mass shootings in Dayton, Ohio, and Boulder, Colorado. And here is Jim McGovern again talking about this, talking about what Clyde is trying to put through.
I get it. The bill's author owns a gun shop and makes millions from selling guns and gun accessories, including stabilizing braces. Sure sounds like a conflict of interest to me, but we are considering it because Speaker McCarthy is trying to put down a far-right rebellion. So we will vote on a bill to make it easier to kill people. He has given away everything to a small group of radical Republicans who will continue to demand more and more from him, apparently now including letting them dictate exactly what bills come to the floor.
Max, I'm putting a lot on you with this question. Talk a little bit about the quid pro quo that McGovern's talking about. This small group of radical Republicans that have Speaker McCarthy by the neck, let's say.
Yeah, all this Trump talk really does distract from the fact that there's a whole government Republicans are failing to run, and Speaker McCarthy is a prime example of that. He wasn't even able to do business at all last week because the Freedom Caucus, this band of far-right MAGA Republicans, effectively stopped him from opening business in the House for several days. So he just gave up and said, we'll come back next week and maybe the government will work then. And it seems now in return for being allowed to actually do his job, Kevin McCarthy has just agreed to let the Freedom Caucus decide what goes to the floor, what doesn't, what gets a vote. And it's clear now that Kevin may be the speaker, but it is the Freedom Caucus's voice we're hearing loud and clear here.
And they're saying, Max, that they were the ones that gave him the speakership, so they're entitled to this, right? I mean, that's the quid pro quo here, right? That we didn't want to support your speakership. We wanted to actually have someone else put in there, and we wanted to make it you squirm all night, which we did do. And now you went ahead with this debt ceiling increase, so we're going to get back at you. Is that what's going on here too?
Exactly. I mean, the debt ceiling was the red line. Freedom Caucus Republicans said, we supported you for speaker on the explicit agreement you wouldn't negotiate with Democrats on things like this. And in return, don't expect anything else you want to happen for the rest of your term. Whatever's going to go up is going to be what the Freedom Caucus wants. And so we're seeing this parade of extremist legislation, and this gun braces is just the start.
And so, Waz, Max talked about being distracted by Trump, and what's going on in Washington is obviously terribly important in real time. But these are still the people that are fighting for these braces, and the Andrew Clydes and the Freedom Caucus. These are Trump's people, right? So are they appealing to Trump as well at the same time and saying, we're still here for you and we're fighting the battles you want us to fight on the Hill against McCarthy?
I think when you mentioned that the Freedom Caucus and the sort of rightward fringe of the party had McCarthy by the short hairs, you had it exactly right. Once they made him grovel to get this speakership that he so desperately wanted, that he was willing to debase himself both publicly and privately to achieve that end. This was always going to be the outcome of his speakership. They were gonna bully him and dictate terms to him at every single turn because he initially negotiated with these people. And I guess they demonstrated that they were willing to sort of blow up the government and blow up his bid for speakership and never even have a speaker if this guy did not deal with them. And now he's sort of reaping the benefits of that negotiation. And this is just what it's gonna be. And so far as these people are Trump people, I don't know that they're Trump people more so than they are just what the fringe of the right has been for 30 years. Only back in the days, the GOP used to only play footsie with these folks, right? And they could sort of, pat them on the head and said, yeah, we'll play lip service to your crazy, cranky ideas. And then we're gonna, nominate our George Bushes and Mitt Romneys and John McCain's and so on and so forth. However, as time has passed on, they've legitimized many of those ideas, and those people who we called part of the lunatic fringe, they amassed power and even got themselves elected. And now they're actually have their hands on the wheels of power, and we're seeing the consequences of that. This is what the Republicans have sort of reaped, guys.
Yeah, and McCarthy could be the last line of defense to a lot of this, and he's tried to be in pushing them back as much as they can. But their power and the fact that just one person can basically have a vote on whether or not he should remain, can call a vote on whether or not it's called a motion to vacate, whether or not he can even be speaker. They have a lot more power disproportionate to what they should have, and that any sort of faction of Congress has ever had, certainly in recent times. Max, is there anything, does McCarthy have anywhere to go? I mean, you see him fumbling on Donald Trump. You see him unable to open Congress, as you reminded us. He, as Was just said, he is the most self-debasing person that we've seen in Congress, and it's a sufficient role in Congress. What are his options?
Yeah, I mean, things are dwindling for Kevin McCarthy. He has no real base within his party anymore. The problem is even people who maybe don't dislike Kevin McCarthy also acknowledge that he is a terrible political strategist, that he has guided the Republican Party from one avoidable defeat to the other, including this debt ceiling bill, which essentially split the GOP in two just in time for primaries. So even if they like him, they're not willing to stake their political reputation on Kevin McCarthy's ability to do his job. And after this last 2 weeks, I mean, that's a pretty safe bet.
We know like a year and a half's a lifetime in politics. So we don't have an election until November of 2024. I mean, it's such a long time away, even though it seems like it's tomorrow. It's not, and a lot can happen, a lot will happen. The Republicans seem like they are in total disarray, both the way they're governing, the way they have a presidential candidate getting indicted on 37 counts. But we all know that you can blink and forget that pretty quickly in the way the world works today. Is there a picture in which they recover from this, Was?
It's hard to see a way out in the immediate future. I think in order to see some progress, they'd have to burn this whole thing down as it existed and be willing to lose a few election cycles in a row. Meaning they'd have to be.
They'll never be willing to lose.
That's what I'm saying. They would have to be willing to relinquish power in the short term to sort of regather steam and get these people out of the paint, so to speak. But no, the power is too enticing and quite frankly, it's too lucrative. These people, a lot of these people, frankly, before they even get elected, they're already millionaires. And the way the sort of revolving door of government and private enterprise interact with each other these days, they know the kind of payouts. Like when McCarthy gets ousted, the day he no longer wants to be part of the Republican Party, he will have a multi-million-dollar job on some nonsense board waiting for him. And they know that, and they know that they can only achieve those riches by staying in power. So it's hard for me to see them breaking this wheel.
They'll still have to go home to Bakersfield, though, so there's that. Max, very quickly, because we got to get out of here. There's more TYT coming your way, but I want to give you a shot at that. Is there a way out for this guy?
The only way out is through the door. But the sad thing is, as Was said, you don't have to be good to make a lot of money in politics. You just need to cling to power long enough. And really, that seems to be all Kevin's looking for at this point.
Max Burns, a contributor here on Rebel Headquarters. He's also the founder of Third Degree Strategies, which is a progressive communications firm. Wosny Lambrey is a writer at The Ringer, host of the Woke Bros podcast. Guys, thanks for coming through this with me. We were here for a big, really a historic day in American, sad day, I guess, but a historic day in American history. The first time a former president, indicted on federal charges. Indicted on other charges. He's also the first to do that, but this was federal, and there's a lot to look forward to and how that's going to play out. Thanks for watching the Young Turks. Again, don't forget to join tyt.com/join Young Turks.
You know what the progressive movement needs? It needs a little energy, a little pizzazz, maybe a little caffeine. Oh, coffee. But what if it was Too Strong Coffee? Yes, new TooStrongCoffee.com/TYT. Look, this helps progressive causes. It's also organic and fair trade, so you've got peace of mind that it was done right, and it happens to taste great. So check it out right now at TooStrongCoffee.com/TYT.
That's 300 million. That's a pretty good number. Well, that's the size of the US population. You know what our next target is? The size of the entire world.
We just crossed 5 billion views on YouTube.
I mean, imagine 10 years ago thinking one day.
We looked at you like, are you nuts?
Young Turks has just passed another milestone. 20 billion views.
Damn.
All right, lots of comments. You guys are the best.
I'm gonna read a few comments from our members.
Mr. Methuselah says on YouTube, super chat, thanks for all the important work you do for TYT for the movement.
Do you know who had the first super chat when I got back from vacation? You won't be surprised to find out. Billy B. Taylor. What do you know? Billy says, rejoice, for Dragon Daddy has returned.
This question sent to us by Izzy Sanchez Jr. Is it me or is Meghan McCain talking as fast as Ben Shapiro? Is that the way the right tries to look smart and intellectual? Well, yes.
Michael Nathan writes it on Twitter. Did Anna choose Cenk's outfit today? I'm sure it wasn't Cenk himself. Man Bun Jenkins Skinny Jeans says, so now Anna has pointed out, okay, that's his handle.
T. Joyce, 1971, saying Donald Trump is good at pulling out of things, NAFTA, the Iran deal, NATO. It's just too bad Fred Trump didn't.
All right, let me do a little quick plug here. It's not even a plug, I'm bragging, okay? I'm bragging, watch me. We have a channel on YouTube, a whole channel devoted just to the Young Turks. It's badass, right? Wow, man. I can see the void.
You guys are rock stars.
Unbelievable, Senator Sanders. Welcome to Rebel Headquarters. Man, you guys are amazing. We gave you what you wanted.
Okay. Speaking of shirts.
I have a surprise.
You reached a lot of people. You are the Young Turks. And we have spread that progressive message wide and far. Let's keep it going.
Here's what we do. We go beyond the headline. We are willing to engage in transparent conversations with those who do not think like me. We also make sure that you know what's happening not only nationally, but in your local area. Make sure you tune in to Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Ritchie, Monday through Friday, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 11:30 a.m. Pacific Time.
Cool news, shoptyt.com now has books. There's a whole bunch of books there. You're gonna be shocked to find out that they're largely progressive. Of course! Ryan Grimm's book, We've Got People, is there. It's a fantastic story from Jesse Jackson to Bernie Sanders to AOC that explains the progressive movement probably better than any book I've ever read. Speaking of awesome books, my dad's got a book out called The Original Young Turk, where he goes from the poorest olive farmer you ever met in your life to living the American dream.
Welcome back to the Young Turks. I'm Rayvana, joined today by Jackson White and Ben Glebe, and you can see all three of our videos on Rebel HQ. Ben, nice to see you again today. Jackson, it's been a whole day. I can't even believe it.
It's been a whole 24 hours. Well, maybe like 31 hours or something, but it's been so long. But yeah, now this is definitely gonna be a good hour. I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Ray and I were on air together for an hour just moments ago on Boss. So this is exciting. We've now honed our opinions on everything, and it's going to be next level commentary.
Exactly. We can relitigate some of the conversations we had earlier.
Yeah. Yes, indeed.
All right, guys, are you ready to jump into the first story?
Always.
All right, let's get into it.
Always Coca-Cola.
According to Vice, the Proud Boys are too busy throwing temper tantrums over Pride Month and Bud Light to care about Trump's second indictment. Just a reminder, he has been indicted twice. This is the second one. But the Proud Boys and Trump have a long, ugly love affair together. But apparently the Proud Boys are ready to move on, according to Tess Owen, who wrote the Vice report. So let's take a look at what she found. She says, Cape Fear Proud Boys in North Carolina were too busy posting updates about their protest outside a drag show in Winston-Salem over the weekend to even acknowledge the latest indictment against Trump. Proud Boys Tulsa chapter only paused their steady stream of anti-Pride memes to acknowledge the death of Unabomber Ted Kaczynski, writing "Rest in Peace, King," which is definitely a good look for their organization that, already was probably having PR trouble. But she continues on, the Ohio chapter reposted an AI image showing a ripped, tanned, and tattooed Trump in a prison yard in between rants about Bud Light, actor Elliot Page, and family-friendly Pride events. So at least the Ohio chapter acknowledged that Trump might be going to jail, which is more than can be said for some of these other chapters. But she concludes by saying, overall, reports that Bud Light is co-sponsoring a family-friendly Pride event in Flagstaff, Arizona, is currently attracting more ire from the Proud Boys than the DOJ filing charges against Trump. And last weekend, even Trump acknowledged how extreme this culture war has become. Let's take a look.
It's amazing how strongly people feel about that. You see, I'm talking about cutting taxes, people go like that. Talk about transgender, everyone goes crazy. Who would have thought 5 years ago you didn't know what the hell it was?
Apparently it's not your granddad's Republican Party anymore. Although I think 5 years ago, most of us were aware what transgender people were. Ben, is it surprising to you that the far right groups that typically had been supporting Trump are now caring less and less about what's going on with him and more about fighting this culture war?
It doesn't really surprise me because I actually think it is your granddad's Republican Party. I mean, Trump is the granddad that won't relinquish control, and he sets the divisive tone for these culture wars. He's basically just commenting on his own work, that what he has done to divide us and to stoke bigotry is what keeps these things at the forefront. And I'm not surprised that the Proud Boys are standing back and not standing by anymore, per Trump's famous warning during the debate, literally telling a hate group to just wait for my call and then I'll let you know, because they are a word I would say in the bonus episode, and they are cowardly. They're I wish I could say the real word, but they're a bunch of cowardly. I'm being told by producers, do not say it. They're frantically shaking their heads. This has become a theme with me. They are total cowards, and it's much easier for them to fight a beer, which does not have an actual opposition to them, but there's no actual confrontation, no actual thing. You can show up to an event and fight a beer. Beer doesn't fight back. Very easy to shoot a beer, a lot harder to stand up and shoot people despite all of their bravado. So it makes a lot of sense that an organization of hate named themselves after young boys are not exactly the men they purport to be.
Right, Proud Boys does sound like a Boy Scout group or something, like a backyard baseball, some type of kindergarten clique or something. It's really ridiculous. But
sounds like a gay Boy Scout troop, really.
Yeah. I almost said that, but that makes it even better because it just fits so much into the attacks that they make on all the left-wing communities in general. But it's just been really incredible to watch because at the end of the day, Donald Trump is just such a cheap scumbag loser. I mean, he really is. He's like such a stain, but also such a representation of what the United States is. Just all the negative buildup and all the gunk and the scum of the country basically in one man. I often question to myself, I think, how is this dude even a real person? You know what I'm saying? Like, just the ridiculousness is just, the meter is just completely through the roof. But we really, really do live in a country full of people who are crazy and who you really can't work with. And I think that there's no point in trying to work with people like this. I think that the only thing we can do and should do is win. Beat them not just at the federal level, but at the state and especially at the local level of governance. But we just got to beat these people flat out.
Right. And I think what's really disappointing is, like you said, these people are crazy and they really don't represent the majority opinion on these social issues. But what's really disappointing to see is that more and more companies are capitulating to the right-wing crusade against Pride Month in the LGBTQ community. Particularly now we're seeing Starbucks, which has marketed itself as progressive over the years, is only the latest to do so. They're following in Target's footsteps. Starbucks Workers United took to Twitter today to shine a light on what's going on at Starbucks. Their first tweet here reads, "Breaking, in the middle of Pride Month, Starbucks bans pride decorations in stores across the United States." And they followed that up with some more information. Taking a cue from Target, who bowed to anti-LGBTQ+ pressure and removed pride merchandise, corporate and district management are taking down the pride decorations that have become an annual tradition in stores. And I want to say for a second, as a member of the queer community, it's not the top of my priority list that corporations pander to me, because they're not doing it because they actually care about queer rights. But one thing that's concerning about this to me is they're willing to capitulate to far right-wing narratives about LGBTQ people. They're willing to walk back their support of the community, even if it was just to sell more coffee or to sell more items in the $5 section at Target. They're willing to walk that back in service of right-wing narratives. And that is something that we should be concerned about. And Starbucks not only betrayed its queer employees by taking down the pride decorations, but they also exposed the company's double standards for union busting. So Starbucks Workers United tweeted, "In union stores where Starbucks claims they are unable to make, quote, unilateral changes without bargaining, the company took down pride decorations and flags anyway, ignoring their own anti-union talking point." One of the main talking points they were putting forth was that you won't be able to have direct communication with the company. You won't be able to have direct communication with your boss. All decisions are gonna have to go through your union rep. But apparently that's only convenient to say when it's a talking point, which who wants to have direct communication with their boss anyway is beyond me. But when it comes to enforcing their anti-LGBTQ policies now, you don't have to worry, it's not gonna go through your union rep. We're gonna step right in and do what we want. But I think one good point was made by Will Menaker of Chapo Trap House. He pointed out on Twitter, he said, "I think they're aware that among their mostly young employees who are interested in or care about politics, there's a big circle diagram of cares about gay and trans rights and cares about forming a union. If they can make it less hospitable, they'll do it in any way they can." And I know some of you might be hearing this or reading this and thinking it's a bit of a reach, but we've seen Starbucks go to extreme lengths to squash unionizing efforts. We've seen them go to heinous extremes to stop the unionization in their stores. It wouldn't surprise me at all if this was another, at the very least, it has the added effect of, diminishing the, people who might want to work for the company from joining. And those people happen to be more likely to be left wing and more likely to unionize. But Jackson, it's really disappointing to see these organizations capitulate to these right wingers.
Well, and I think there's several important points. And the first one is that this capitulation is incredibly unnecessary for a variety of reasons. One, because the queer community by and large has become accepted within the United States. as you pointed out, not fully, but as you pointed out, the loud group is a smaller representation than the majority. The queer community is accepted in this country enough to the point that even people who may have a little bit of prejudices, we all know them, they may keep them quieter to themselves. So I say that to say capitulating to a group that actually isn't very large within the country really doesn't have anything to do with their sales, because at the end of the day, caffeine is a drug and people ain't gonna stop drinking caffeine. People aren't gonna stop consuming caffeine. You know what I'm saying? Like the people who are really loud about, they have pride flags in the Starbucks line. What is that, like 1 out of 30 people, 1 out of 50 people on some type of real ratio? So it was incredibly unnecessary. And I think that also this goes to show that, sometimes in life we don't have a spine. Sometimes in life we have to develop courage. We have to develop the ability to stand up for ourselves through experience and hardship. But once you develop the ability to have a spine, you realize that most people really ain't gonna do nothing about it. And so this is another situation where it's like, who cares about these people whining and griping? They ain't gonna do nothing about it if y'all keep the pride flags. What they gonna do? Stop getting their crack? Stop getting their cocaine? No, they not gonna do that. So I think that it's just stupid all around.
Yeah, I mean, even Kid Rock's bar has Bud Light in it again, and nobody seems to care. And I mean, Starbucks does claim that they did not capitulate and that they are still encouraging pride things pride displays in their stores, but that seems to be not the case in practicality. And while I totally think you're right, Jackson, that it doesn't really affect their bottom line, at least when it comes to a drug like coffee and the Starbucks on every corner, I think that seems to be all that these companies' calculus is which one is gonna affect my money? What's gonna affect the bottom line? I can picture them in a boardroom right now being like, okay, supporting gay people, this much coffee sales. Not supporting the gay community, this much coffee sales. Someone new in the back is like, quick question, what about the values that we have as a company? And should we actually be human beings and stand for something? Like, shut up with your values. We're looking at raw numbers here. Supporting which side sells more damn beans. Fire the newbie, get them out of here. Unless they're gay, in which case it might get out, in which case we need to make sure we handle that properly.
Exactly. And I think too, just lastly, I think that was really good. But just to focus on how much this country is short-term minded. You know what I mean? In terms of like all that short-term gripe that people are making. Oh, it'll affect our sales. Shut that guy up in the back room over 1 month. Literally 1 month that they can't stand up for something. So,
right. Yeah, and I think that's really just shown by the fact that anytime you look at the Bud Light profits, they haven't gone down the way right-wingers would have you believe that they've gone down.
No, absolutely not. And more importantly, they do branding campaigns with like hundreds of people a year all over the world. You know what I'm saying? So this is just a very short moment in time that they whining and complaining about.
Yeah, but I mean, also on the flip side of that, I said this earlier with you, Ray, on the other show, but how dare the people at Bud Light give a commemorative can to a human being?
Right.
How dare they? How dare they do that? What do they think people are? People? I'm tired of companies going woke and thinking that people are people. People aren't people.
People are sources of revenue.
Correct. Damn correct. Finally, someone said it. People are prophets, my friend.
Now that we've spoken that brave truth to power, I think it's time we take our first break. But stick around because we'll be back with more after this. Welcome back to the Young Turks. If you're not already, don't forget to become a member, tyt.com/join. Just send that link to everybody in your contacts on your phone right now. Don't say anything else, just send them the link. Get them to sign up so they can get all of the perks that come with it. And I also want to remind everybody that if you have a story that you want us to cover, you can send it to pitches@tyt.com. If there's something important that you think we're missing, speak up, maybe we'll cover it. Also want to remind everybody that for only $4.99 a month, you can help keep us independent and allow us to continue reporting the facts that the corporate establishment media won't tell you or doesn't want you to know about. So help us fight for a future where we don't have to do the bidding and no media has to do the bidding of the establishment. See how you can make an impact at tyt.com/impact. Also remind all of you that if you ever miss the wonderful Unbossed with Senator Nina Turner, or hey, if you missed Unbossed today with me and Ben, you could go back and check the videos out on their YouTube channel, youtube.com/unbossedtyt, or you can take your phone and scan the QR code right there, unless you're my mom, in which case she'll never be able to figure out how to do it. So mom, go to youtube.com/unbossedtyt. Also want to remind everybody about the Juneteenth special, which is coming on Friday, June 16th at 8 p.m. Eastern time, 5 p.m. Pacific. That's 7 p.m. Central Standard Time if you live in a real time zone like I do. And that'll be featuring special guest Senator Nina Turner, Mayor Mondale Robinson, Sharon Reed, Adrian Lawrence, and J.R. Jackson. They're gonna discuss the history of Juneteenth and its significance in today's current political climate. You make sure to check that out, tune in on tyt.com/live, where you can check it out, YouTube, Twitch, wherever you're watching right now, you'll be able to watch it on there. All right, let's move on quickly to get some of your comments from the member section. Oxymoron says, Proud Boys don't like, or Lynn says, excuse me, Oxymoron, Proud Boys don't like Pride Month. Right. And as Ben hinted, it is a little bit of a gay name for a group. As a member of the queer community, I can say that. I co-sign that. Peppermint Dragon says, the Target where I live in a suburb of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania has not moved its Pride decor. I wonder if they're only doing it regionally. Yeah, I believe that is the case. They're targeting where they think that it's gonna cost them money. But I mean, at the end of the day, selling merchandise isn't gonna cost you money. Let's go over to the Twitch sub. Someone from Flint said, Trump calling them stupid right to their face. We love that. DJ Barbeeb says, yes, I love Jackson. Shark Attack says, woohoo, Rebel HQ trio.
Yeah.
Welcome back to TYT. Ravana, Jackson White, and Ben Glebe coming at you with some more news. And let's turn to my state of Illinois and some of the great things that are coming out of here. Let's watch.
Now to Illinois, where Democratic Governor J.B. Pritzker signed a bill today that effectively makes Illinois the first state in the nation to end book bans. The law cuts funding to any public libraries or schools that do not adhere to the American Library Association's Library Bill of Rights, which prohibits the removal or restriction of reading materials due to partisan or personal disapproval.
That's right. Illinois just became the first state to take action against the massive wave of book bans sweeping the country. For more on the bill, let's hear from the big boy governor himself of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker.
The American Library Association cited 67 attempts to ban books in Illinois in 2022. One of those books is the memoir Gender Queer by Maya Kobabe, which explores non-binary gender identity. That effort failed. But how do you respond to parents who say that it should be up to them to decide what their children read?
Well, that's exactly what this bill does. This new law allows parents to make the decision about whether their children will be able to get that book and make the decision about whether they don't want to present that to their kids. So this isn't about taking things away. This is, I believe in freedom. I believe in the freedom to read and to understand and learn. And that's what libraries and librarians do. We should let librarians do the work that they have always always done. They get to choose what books get put on the shelves, but they also are prohibited from, taking books off the shelves for political reasons.
Boy, does it feel good to be a resident of Illinois and have our governor making news for something that's not corruption. Woo. But unsurprisingly, of course, Illinois Republicans were not happy about this bill. House Minority Leader Tony McCombie wrote this in an emailed statement. He said, "I support local control. Our caucus does not believe in banning books, but we do believe that the content of books should be considered in their placement on the shelves," which is, if you couldn't tell, just a fancy way of him saying that he wants to ban books, because no matter what, the schools and the school districts are gonna have control over what books are going on the shelves, just not the ability to ban or prohibit books outright. Anyway, the Illinois bill is very much necessary because a mind-boggling number of books are getting attacked by conservatives. Associated Press reported that more than 1,200 challenges were compiled by the American Library Association in 2022, nearly double the then record total from 2021, and by far the most since the ALA began keeping data 20 years ago. And Ben, isn't it just so ironic that these conservatives who love to talk about, it's just like 1984, this is like Fahrenheit 451, but they are literally the ones banning the books.
They are the most soft, snowflakey, afraid of everything, can't go outside, can't be exposed to a thought or an idea, group of people that crumble under the tiniest bit of criticism, the tiniest bit of challenging information, the tiniest bit of exposure to somebody different than they are possible. It's so embarrassing for them that these people are so fragile that they have to get their panties in a bunch and crumble like a ice cream cone in the wind, melting right down to the bottom of their soft, soggy cone to be able to exist in this world. I feel terrible for these people. How harmful ideas must be. They should probably try to insulate themselves from anybody from the outside world and keep inbreeding so that they don't have any outside genes affecting their gene pool. It's a smart way to go, fellas. Less teeth, less chromosomes, less evolution. You stick with you. Do it.
Less problems too, less to worry about, less brain capacity, less to worry about. You know what I'm saying? But I think what the governor said is true. The bill allows for parents to step in and have some autonomy over what their kids do or don't read. But for me, the funniest thing about this is that we live in an age, one, where paperback books are becoming less and less of like a generally consumed thing at all. And also, how many children just really love reading? And like, let's be serious. Like, I mean, yeah, you do have some kids that love to read, but generally, like, kids don't just love reading books like that. So like, I'm gonna sneak off and read a book about cultural identity issues. Like, most children don't even know how to think about those things, especially if you're talking about like elementary or middle school settings. Maybe you might be starting to explore it, but again, it's like, if it's really that big of a deal, then just step up and be a parent. Step up and introduce some influence into your children's life and, some discipline or whatever it is. Actually lead them, actually provide some insight. But too often these people, as Ben was pointing out, they have inbred insight. And so it just doesn't go very far. You know what I'm saying? So, but yeah, it's just really stupid, and it's also an incredible waste of political capital to try to ban books that nobody's reading anyway. Let's be serious.
Right. And
I think a lot of. No, go ahead, Ray.
Oh no, go ahead. You can finish what you were.
I was just gonna. What I was gonna say was very stupid. I was just gonna say a lot of these people with these repressive opinions, they're lettuce, tomato, and meat because they're inbred.
You're right. I should have just kept up.
It needed to flow.
One thing I think is really interesting as we talk about this is the fact that this is sort of promoted as if there's an influx of large groups of parents who want these books to be banned, when in fact, and they're portrayed as grassroots movements, but in fact, they're actually most of these movements have ties to infamous conservative villains and mega donors like the Koch brothers. And let's look at it this, as a specific example, Moms for Liberty. The Guardian did some reporting on this group, and they found that Moms for Liberty groups are promoted on the website of Parents Defending Education, another conservative group. PDE's president, Nicole Neely, was previously the executive director of the Independent Women's Forum and worked at the Cato Institute, a right-wing think tank co-founded by Republican mega donor Charles Koch. The Intercept reported that the IWF has received large donations from Republican donor Leonard Leo. Moms for Liberty also appears to be affiliated with, or at least a frequent promoter of, the Heritage Foundation, a right-wing Koch-funded think tank. There's another group called No Left Turn in Education, with a clever name that is for your group. But they're a similar group to Moms for Liberty, and they are also promoted on this PDE website. According to The Guardian, again, No Left Turn in Education has links to deep-pocketed conservatives. The Milwaukee Journal reported that Alana Fishbein, No Left Turn in Education's founder, has provided free legal representation for parents wishing to challenge school districts. According to Journal, most of those lawyers are affiliated with the Liberty Justice Center and Pacific Legal Foundation, which received funding from the prominent GOP donor Dick Uehlhein, a Wisconsin-based billionaire. And that's a lot, but I still have one more example for you from the New York Times. The Keller Independent School District just outside of Dallas passed a new rule in November. It banned books from its libraries that include the concept of gender fluidity. The change was pushed by 3 new school board members elected in May with support from Patriot Mobile, a self-described Christian cell phone carrier. Through its political action committee, Patriot Mobile poured hundreds of thousands of dollars into Texas school board races to promote candidates with conservative views on race, gender, and sexuality, including on which books children can access at schools. And if you think a cell phone provider called Patriot Mobile is actually genuinely bringing in enough revenue from selling their phone service to individuals that they could fund these races, I have a bridge to sell you. I mean, Jackson, it's not surprising to see that the same big moneyed interests that have been fighting these culture wars and pushing these culture wars are also funding these book banning bills. But it is interesting to see it just laid out in front of you how interconnected these orgs are.
Well, and also too, it's hilarious when liberty is actually the antithesis of the word, what they associate it with. Moms for Liberty, which means the ability to impose my narrow-mindedness onto everyone else. I mean, that's basically all it is. And the dumbest thing about it is these are issues that people could just choose to not think about. Now, that's not to say we have perfect control of our thoughts. Nobody can turn their minds off. You can't perfectly control what's in there. But some things, yeah, you can just choose to just keep yourself busy in other areas. Like some people just need to go do something. You know what I'm saying? Like while your kids, for real, like your kids at school having a good time, probably just playing with their friends, not thinking about any of this, like literally not thinking about any of these things. And you're just like tapping your pencil at work, not being productive. Like, oh, my kid might read a book that has gay people in it. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just so stupid. But again, the idea of freedom to them is their freedom to take freedom away from everybody else.
Exactly.
No, see, I disagree because I grew up watching a show called My Two Dads, and that show made me gay. It made me be very gay. And it just changed the trajectory of my life. I wasn't able to discern a show from, my own life. And obviously I'm kidding because that is very stupid. And I was able to somehow still turn out straight, believe it or not. I mean, it's the craziest idea in the world to think that exposure to an idea is gonna change somebody. So it's not even rooted in actual belief or fear. It's just rooted in hate. It's just, let's try to make that group feel small, make that group feel less than.
One thing I really like about that conservative line of thinking is that being gay is such an attractive idea that the mere exposure of the concept of gayness will be enough to convert people into being gay. I love the idea that it has this power. The mere knowledge of homosexuality is enough to grasp you and change the course of your life forever.
Yes,
it's like a
very
spell.
powerful.
It's a spell.
It's kind of a vortex. You can't get out of it. Next, I understand Republicans are going to ban the word happiness because it has a penis in it.
And it also is related to the word gay, so we can't have any of that going on. You know what I'm saying? But the bottom line is, like as a heterosexual man, like I don't think about men sexually because I'm not gay, and it's not more complicated than that. You know what I'm saying? So, there's something to be said about being so obsessed with the idea of homosexuality if you aren't. It's really not complicated.
I grew up as a boy named Ben, and the popular cream or ointment if you hurt yourself back then was called Ben Gay. Literally, it was called Ben Gay. And I came out not gay. So there's nothing more overt than seeing on billboards and signs and stores Ben Gay. And I ended up straight. If anything proves you can survive exposure to direct program messaging, it's that.
Despite the obstacles, you still made it to the top of the hill.
I made it to the top of the hill if the top of the hill is dating women who usually aren't interested.
And I'll just end this by saying, as a queer person, I didn't become gay because I watched Santana and Britney kiss each other on Glee. I was gay long before that. That was just when I realized that I was in love with Naya Rivera.
Same. I asked her out once, actually, unsuccessfully, as a side note.
Well, shit, I almost cursed there. But you got to try, man. You got to shoot your shot.
You got to shoot your shot.
All right, everybody, we got to go to our next break, but stick around because we've got some more really good stories, particularly one about Marjorie Taylor Greene that has had me laughing the past couple of days coming up. So you won't want to miss it. Welcome back to the Young Turks. It's time for us to read some of your comments. Although I saw this one out of the corner of my eye, so I am going to read it. Someone on Twitch, Fiddlecaster Oil, said, "Ray, can you let Ben know that I first found his work by shuffling podcasts on my Zune HD? It would mean a lot to me." So you made a fan on Zune, Ben.
I don't even know what that is, but thank you very much. My old podcast last week on Earth. I might be.
You don't know what it is, but it came through for you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Came through with the
ignorance is bliss. Look at that.
Okay, let's go over to the members section. Huang Jun says, "Yeah, but what about woke math, Illinois? Have you ever thought about that? Yeah, we got to now pass a bill to protect woke math in schools." Donna says, "Proud Boys are probably mad that Trump can't pardon them." I mean that. Their leader was indicted on multiple charges. He's convicted of several crimes. Things aren't looking that good for the Proud Boys. Veda says, "I prefer to think of the Proud Boys as the vainglorious lads or the self-satisfied whippersnappers." Bark Nova says, "For the right wing, attacking LGBTQ Pride Month is just the beginning. Next, they will come for Black and brown people, immigrants, women, disabled people. Soon stores will not be able to celebrate Black History Month, APA Month, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, I mean, the attacks and some of those things have been concurrent. I mean, for the love of God, Juneteenth is a day that they get off work. They're so racist that they're mad that they're getting a day off work.
Bad for the economy.
Right.
I mean, that's what it's bad for the economy. We don't need all these holidays, these woke holidays.
I would think giving people a holiday would just end racism. Like, how about we just stop being racist if we give you a day off work extra every year? And I'd be like, listen, I'm not in favor of other groups of people, but
that's a
I'd
decent
like
trade.
Vacation time.
I love to sit on my ass during a work day. So, okay, let's head over to the Twitch subs. Dcash says this bill provides freedom to choose. Book bans take away the freedom to choose. I think that's really well put because, as we pointed out, the book bans, you can't bring those books in, but the anti-book ban, the school district has the ability to make that decision. School board has the ability to make that decision. Chipmunk PDX says, I knew I was gay pretty young at a time when there wasn't the internet to access information. I would have loved to have seen books like this because at the very least, I would have known I wasn't a broken freak. Right, it is meaningful. Sammy Armani over on YouTube says, Ray double dose. Vincent says Action Jackson, and Quincy says Ben Glebe exclamation point. Welcome back to the Young Turks. Ray Vaughn, Jackson White, and Ben Glebe coming at you with some more news. And I teased it, so let's get into it. We've got a Marjorie Taylor Greene story. This weekend, criminal traitor former President Trump flew to Georgia, and the woman with the grossest toes in Congress, Marjorie Taylor Greene, showed up at the tarmac to give him a warm welcome. Let's see how Trump reacted to her very thoughtful gesture. Let's all savor the fact that Marjorie Taylor Greene posted this video of herself getting embarrassed. I mean, in this shot, you can really see it. Let's pull this picture up. She's just standing there with her mouth. This sucks. But she tweeted out the video. It's great to be home with Donald J. Trump. He won Georgia in 2016. He won Georgia in 2020, and Georgia will re-elect him for a third time in 2024. And there she is, all alone. On the tarmac. Although apparently eventually Trump did acknowledge her existence because like attracts like and traitors attract traitors. So here's a picture of the two of them. She tweeted out, honored to stand with the two men Biden's communist DOJ unjustly indicted. Although, you know what? There's a chance he doesn't even know she's standing next to him. She may have just walked in frame as he was taking a picture.
Or Photoshop.
Exactly. She might have, I wouldn't put it past her. But Marjorie Taylor Greene is still bending over backwards to get Trump's approval. Here is what she announced just yesterday. She tweeted out, this morning, I'm writing an appropriations rider to defund Special Counsel Jack Smith's office and entire investigation. I will not vote for any appropriations bill to fund the weaponization of government. I hope every one of my Republican colleagues will join me. I liked it better when she wasn't sitting on any committees and had no real power in Congress, but that's just me. But now it's been rumored for a while that messy traitor Greene wants to be Donald Trump's pick for vice president. Many are calling her pick me for Trump. Here are some words spewed from human embodiment of halitosis Steve Bannon on the subject. He spoke to NBC News and said, there is no shrinking violet. She's ambitious. She's not shy about that, nor should she be. She sees herself on the short list for Trump's vice president. And apparently his statement was backed up by an anonymous source who also spoke to NBC and said, a second source who has advised Greene said her, quote, whole vision is to be vice president. I'm sorry, can we pause there? Your goal is to become the vice president of the United States. Your highest ambition is to become a feckless vice president. That's the stuff of nightmares. I mean, I'm just thinking of the show Veep. And like, what a ridiculous role that is. That is your ambition. That's your ambition. I mean, it doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise. I mean, she's not someone who should have even been able to envision herself winning elected office. But nonetheless, Ben, here we are with Marjorie Taylor Greene getting to make decisions about our laws.
Yeah, listen, Major League Trader Greed is somebody who is embarrassing every day. I'm sure when she looks in the mirror, she feels strange about herself, and it creates this anger that she brings out forth into the world. But I don't think becoming vice president is her highest ambition. She's doing a lot of great stuff on the side, like indoctrinating young Republican women to give up their careers at the Charlie Kirk summit this weekend, and telling them that they should not, care about having a job, kind of like she does. The amount just in general that people in the GOP, that the random rank and file followers of the GOP are willing to have the cognitive dissonance of listening to advice from people who clearly are not taking their own advice is mind-boggling. And MT Jesus is just one of the great examples of the people that just spew stuff out of their mouth without anything but, how can I become more famous through it? Is there a way I can do it through hate? Because then it's a win-win for me. It's just gross.
I really dig the MT Jesus. You keep coming out with the perfect names, man. The MT Jesus definitely works. But I forgot half of what I was gonna say because I should have listened to Ray when she said don't look up pictures of her feet, and I did. And so that's like now like clouding my cerebrum. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, Marjorie Taylor Greene, at the end of the day, she's definitely nuts. She's definitely crazy. We know that. Whatever her ambitions are, really are just being the center of attention at the. And one thing that I pointed out when she was yelling with Jamal Bowman when them two were going at it, I was like, oh yo, she crazy for real because I don't see no fear. I don't see no uncomfortable. She's not uncomfortable with the situation. She really crazy for sure, but. The video was hilarious because Trump was like treating it because they said she's like a huge pick-me for him. He was treating him like, you got to keep him chasing after you. You got to fill him with some anxiety. You got to keep it behind you. You got to keep them on their toes. But yeah, match made in heaven for sure. Can you imagine if Marjorie Taylor Jesus was actually the vice president?
I'm looking at pictures of her feet right now, and how does she keep on her toes herself?
No, that's what I'm saying, bro. Like
she has a limited number of toes. She has less than 10 toes, definitely.
Yeah, no. See, I got Ben curious. Well, this really was Ray's fault because she mentioned it first, and
I do blame Ray for this. Yes, I do.
Yeah, maybe we can pull up a picture for the audience to see during the bonus episode.
yeah, we're gonna have to.
But let's move on. Let's get into this next story about someone whose ambitions are slightly higher than the vice president, and that is Governor Gavin Newsom.
The homeless numbers are not really good. No, for you in your state versus Florida.
I acknowledge that, and no, I mean I wouldn't compare ourselves to anyone. It's a disgrace, the homeless issue out here. This state has not made progress in the last 2 decades as it relates to homelessness.
Why?
Because housing costs are too high, our regulatory thickets are too problematic. I own this. I take responsibility for this. This is personal to me. I love this state. I don't like what's happening with the encampments. I don't like what's happening in the streets and sidewalks.
Last night, Sean Hannity called out Gavin Newsom on the homelessness crisis in California during an hour-long interview. And that's not the only issue that Hannity attacked Newsom on, though. November of 2020, Newsom was heavily criticized for attending a fancy dinner party while he was simultaneously telling California residents to stay locked down in their homes for Thanksgiving. That incident is almost 3 years old by now, but Hannity, desperate for material, still called Newsom out for it. Let's take a look at how Newsom reacted.
By the way, you probably shouldn't have gone to the French Laundry.
No, it was a dumb mistake. It was a terrible mistake. It wasn't illegal. It was wrong. And I totally violated the spirit of what I was preaching. And it was wrong. And I own that. I own that. And you know what? For the grace of God, no one else has ever made a mistake. I guess I did. I own that.
Okay, everybody makes mistakes. However, that was a dumb one.
But it was dumb. And I own it. So I don't need to be reminded of it.
Close quarters, no mask. And I'm like, all right.
It was.
Hey, look, by the way, right. I think it was your birthday party, right?
It was a good friend's 50th birthday party. The restaurant was legally open. It was dumb.
So what do you guys think? Jackson, you first. Is he setting up a run to become the president? We talked yesterday about how he was making kissy faces at Trump during different parts of this interview. But why is Gavin Newsom doing a sit-down interview with Sean Hannity?
I think he's definitely getting his name and his face out there. He's the governor of what is it? California's like the 6th largest economy on the planet or something like that, which also is hilarious because Republicans are always like, oh, the failing state of California is just failing so terribly. But, obviously it's not. It has its issues, but it's not failing. But him and Ron DeSantis, their feud is definitely very publicized. And Gavin Newsom has certain things going for him that makes him easy to showcase. He's good looking, he's charismatic, he's relatively young, especially for the political field. And his record isn't horrible. It's not great, but it's not horrible. People don't hate him. That being the case, he actually has a pretty solid chance of becoming president through the Democratic Party. Obviously not in 2024, but at some point I think that he has a pretty good shot. He reminds me of what's the name from Florida who Ron DeSantis beat? The dude who got caught up in all them scandals. You don't remember his name? The former he was trying to become governor of Florida. I can't remember his name.
Chris.
No, the black dude.
I know who you're talking about. I can't remember his name.
Yeah, I don't know why. Yeah, Gillum.
Gillum. Thank you.
Yeah. Andrew Gillum. He kind of has before Andrew Gillum got caught up in all the controversy that he did, he also had a very good shot at possibly becoming president through the Democratic establishment. And Gavin Newsom, to me, is kind of like on a similar par, just in terms of all right, this guy's definitely going to be a star. He kind of is a star of the Democratic Party already. And I'm not saying that in a sense of he's great, but he fits the profile. So yeah, he's definitely going to run for president.
I mean, look, Newsom is clearly setting up some sort of a shadow campaign. He's publicly endorsing Biden, raising money for the Biden campaign. But also, let's be honest, Biden ain't exactly a spring chicken with perfect conditions to run for office and a rigorous campaign schedule for the next 2 years. And it's not stupid to have a backup plan. All health and best of luck to the president. But Newsom is ready to step in. I've personally always found him a bit creepy. I think he just has this, he's too slick, the slick back hair and the suits and the way he talks. He's either going to be running for president or hoping to play Patrick Bateman in an American Psycho reboot, talking about Phil Collins albums. I mean, it's a very American Psycho look this dude likes to pull off for some reason. And he's also definitely gearing up his political bona fides by doing interviews where he's just in one interview caving into the right wing so hard, like in everything. I think it's good to own your mistakes, but not to Sean Hannity. When Hannity's bringing up old stuff, hit him back hard. Hit him back for all the things he endorses. Don't just say, listen, I agree, that one was dumb. The thing from my childhood, that was stupid. I'm also dumb about this, also dumb about that. What is he hiding, an axe behind his back? He's just waiting for Hannity to look to the right even further, if that's even possible, to pull that out and strike him while looking at himself in the mirror while he makes love to prostitutes? Nobody knows. He
did get one very light jab in on Hannity, which we have a clip of. So let's play that.
I'm just wondering, because I have homes in Florida.
Yeah.
And
you pay a lot of property tax there. Double what you pay in California. I would think twice about that.
Except if you add the millionaire property tax that you just put in LA County.
Well, that's a transfer tax, and we didn't do that. That was done locally.
Transfer tax is like $500,000.
I don't know if you can even get house insurance down.
So you're telling me the loss of net population.
18 states, we were number 10.3%.
And this number here, 13.3%. Now, every Californian
also. We've had since we had that for a decade.
Okay,
for a decade.
But right, and you supported it for a decade.
The public actually initiated.
Okay,
it was supported by the public.
But the point is, Florida has 0. The net population growth, hang on, for Florida is almost
1%.
Is almost 1,000 people a day, and you're losing 800 people a day. Wait, here's my question: is this connected to that?
No, I respect your audience too much to let them be misled on this. Your audience doesn't live in that rarefied. No,
this is a lie.
You're manipulating some fundamental facts. You're omitting the fact that the vast majority of people do not live in the 1%.
And if you're wondering what the jab was, Salon gave us some info on that. If you missed it, it was I respect your audience too much to let them be misled. And Salon explained it by saying, Dominion's court filings revealed embarrassing internal communications from Fox leadership and its hosts, showing that they were deeply worried their viewers would abandon them if they didn't do more to elevate the big lie and its attendant conspiracy theories. Quote, respecting this audience, whether we agree or not, is critical, host Sean Hannity wrote in one text, arguing that Fox needed to step up its game in airing these election conspiracy theories. So then that's how Gavin Newsom got his licks back, quoting something that's probably gonna go over the heads of the entire Fox News audience, but I'm sure that he probably felt good saying it himself. Unfortunately,
and that's a left-wing slam. That's a left-wing slam, barely a slam.
That is a liberal wrestling move there. That's all the time we have, though. We've got more on the bonus episode for the members coming up. So just remember, tyt.com/join, become a member, get the bonus episode, get exclusive content. But thanks everybody for tuning in, and until next time.
Indisputable is still